Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to L.O.V. We have a great pioneer DJ from Philly, Frankie Sestito, ladies and gentlemen. And it's indeed my pleasure to welcome him to L.O.V. Studios. He's got a lot to say, and believe me, he's going to bring it all out. A lot of memories and a lot of history that he's going to be able to go back in time. He's going to take you back from the early days as a pioneer, legendary DJ, and first generation Hall of Fame. So it's indeed my pleasure to give you Frankie Sestito, and I thank you, Frankie, for being with us in bringing all your memories.
Well, thank you
With us,
for
all right?
opening up to me and inviting me down. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to tell you about Philadelphia.
I'm going to leave you guys in good hands because he's ready to go on.
Okay, my name is Frank Sestito. Frankie Sestito. I've been around the music business and the discotheque business since the early 70s. I started out as a mobile jock playing at a friend of my mother's club between band sets. I did these intermissions with some old Sern Vegas speakers and a four-channel mic mixer, along with my friend Mario Sarno, and we had a real good time. And it was at the time when bands were prominent, and the nightclub business was probably in its infant stages to where it is today. Um, One of the fun things back in those days was actually trying to get the gear to work, and compared to what's actually going on technology wise today. But that was a lot of fun. Uh, Good time there in the early 70s. I landed my first disc jockey job in a prominent club at the library on City Line Avenue. This was a chain of clubs. It was the library and the branch. It was owned by Mercer and Stevens, and very, very successful club called the Literary Discotheque. Fun time in that particular place. I worked there during the weeks, and Tuesday night was actually one of the busiest nights. Great, great fun. I still am in contact with some of the people that went there. And that was my kind of my base in Philadelphia to start off in the 70s. At the same time, I was working a place up in the Pocono Mountains during the wintertime, during the ski season, Bill Walker's Lounge, which was one of those great spots during that particular season. I worked weekends up there. And in the summertime, I worked at the Music Box down in Margate, New Jersey, which was a fantastic venue. And that'll probably bring me to one of the guys that really, really turned me on to New York, turned me on to some different things, and some great disc jockeys, which I'm sure will be interviewed here at Legends of Vinyl. Wayne Geffman met me, and I met Wayne at the library, and we were talking about the nightclub business, where we were going to go. And Wayne wanted to build this club in Margate, New Jersey. It was owned by Alan Cohen, and the idea was to come in and remodel and to build a discotheque there that would change things at the shore. And we really, really did. That particular club was stated in Discotheque Magazine way back when as a club worth leaving New York for. And I'll get a little more into that as we go along. But Wayne was really instrumental in showing me a lot of things that went on in New York, and the disc jockeys such as Paul Casella, Tony Cintarino, Richie Kazar, Walter Gibbons, Nicky Ciano, Jim Burgess, Tom Savarese, Bobby Guidadaro. I was able to meet all these people in our travels as we were building the clubs. We were lifetime members of 12 West, Enchanted Garden, Eliphas, all the great clubs, which I'm sure everybody in this particular organization will be able to give you that detail on those particular clubs. But so my eyes got open. In Philadelphia, there was maybe 4 or 5 clubs. There was a few gay bars, and there was Harlow's and some other places that were up and coming at the time at this early 70s, a period that I'm speaking of. So I really got an education, and it was a great education. We was able to go to Disco Disc once a week, and we were picking up records there. I was at For the Record with Mancuso at Prince Street. I eventually got into that pool, but was able at some point. I met Frank Lembo um, at the same period, who started the Pocono Record Pool, which was up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Had about 25 members, and I proposed to him that let's bring a branch of that to Philadelphia. And at that point, I was able to convince Frank that it was a good idea and would be able to expand his market from Scranton to a major market in Philadelphia. I should really bring out something that's always been a kind of a creed of myself. When I got into this business, it was always fun, and I was able, and it's always great when you can have fun and make a living out of it. I actually was working a day job, and I've worked a day job in another business all through my disc jockey career. But my main purpose was, it wasn't what the business did for me, it was kind of what I did for the business. And that's how things like the record pool and other promotional things and items like that came about in my career. They weren't always the best moves because I was helping people that were actually really not interested in my help, but interested in where I was, what I was doing, and how they could gain from it. They're lessons learned as you get older, and we all go through that. But really, one of the biggest reasons why I'm here today is to give back and to review that and to really think about giving back to the nightclub business, because it's really been very good to me. I've seen a big evolution from the 70s to now, the new millennium, and from technology to the music, and it's been a great ride. I'm not stuck back in the 70s. I still play today. I play current top 40 and with a mix of dance classics, from the casinos to old bars in Philadelphia. Fun times still, and that'll bring me to where we're at in the 70s. So let's go back to the Music Box, which, although playing the library was very established. It was a straight white club. It had a mixed crowd, but it was primarily disco. It was Blue Magic, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Interestingly enough, the library was on this base floor of this building on City Line Avenue, and the floor directly above it was radio station WIOQ, and the office next to that was CBS Radio in Philadelphia, or CBS Records in Philadelphia. And Armin McKissick was the promoter back in those days. And Armin would constantly, every week, make sure that we had product. And we got the greatest stuff out of Philly that you could imagine very early. In fact, guys like Paul or Tony and stuff like that would always, we would go to New York to try to grab the New York records, the Latin records, the stuff like that. There was the imports and things that we didn't have access to in Philadelphia. They would really, in turn from us, want us to bring the Philly stuff, which we had. I mean, it was great. Literally, they were upstairs, and we were able to get a lot of that product and move that product around. Fun time. It really was great. After working with people like Armin McKissick and Buddy D and many people that were local independent promoters in Philadelphia, we were able to promote some new records, break some new records before radio. And that was key, and that was important to what I was trying to do, or what we were trying to do at that particular time in the music business. We had decent venues, and we were able to bring on some new artists and bring on different types of music. Of course, the Hustle was just coming out at that point, which was a tremendous amount of fun. I can remember when we were at the Music Box, Wayne connected with Eddie Ramos and the Latin Hustlers, and we would have them down on occasion, and people were just mesmerized by the type of dancing, the Latin dancing that was done. And I guess one of my best memories are, I picture a whole dance floor of just people twirling at Enchanted Garden with Paulie playing. I mean, there's thousands of people that were just hustling, and they would hustle from down tempo songs to up tempo songs. It didn't matter. I see some people today that say, play some hustle cuts, and it's funny because when you're in the disc jockey booth and you've seen people that could really dance, they hustle to anything. The hustle was the dance that they were doing. That was a lot of fun. At that point, that's when we went back. I'll go back to the Frank Lembo thing with the Pocono record pool. One of the toughest things, I guess, back in Philly then was actually getting product or getting more product. I was an initial Billboard reporter. I was one of the 13 markets that they used, and I was a Billboard reporter for about 14, 15 years. So a lot of my product came directly to my house, and we gave them instant feedback or feedback that was going on. And we listened to literally hundreds of cuts a week to get our formats for playing that week. A lot of fun, sometimes overwhelming. When a certain genre stuck, you just got blitzed with it. I thought that at that point, because I was one of the lucky ones as a Billboard reporter, to share this with other jocks or to share it with the rest of the Philadelphia, South Jersey, Northeast section of Pennsylvania would be a wonderful idea. We started out at the library working on the dance floor there, passing out records. I think I had 15 guys to start off with. And that 15 DJs expanded to 125 over the years. So that really meant, from a handful of nightclubs that were started out in Philadelphia to potentially over 100 clubs. It's a huge expansion. It was great. We were all over the place and spreading music all over the place and having fun all over the place. Great time. Of course, at that same point, many other record pools had opened up. There was Gemini in Philadelphia, and they did a lot of the urban stuff. But like anything else, as time goes on, more and more people opened up pools. Bob Pantano, who probably still has his pool today, I'm sure he does, opened up a record pool, and he had another 50 members just over in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And at that point, that's when some other clubs opened up. Valentino's, my good friend Joe Noter and Stevie Martirano, with some people that that was a Gambino place. Bob Pantano ran the entertainment there. There was Francine's around the corner. This was all in the Cherry Hill area. Emerald City, a place that I had a ball working at with Carmen Notaro and Chris Tortu and Billy Kennedy and Valerie Luzzi, was someplace else. And we had a blast in someplace else. Someplace else was a great club. It was eventually known as the home of the Tramps. The Tramps Philly band would play there once a month. And they would play at someplace else, or then they would play at Valentino's, and they would draw huge crowds. And we, from the Tramps, of course, we did Gloria Gaynor, we did Lolita Holloway, number of artists that we would feature, and of course all the promo acts, the track acts that would come through the record pool as they were coming through the Philadelphia area. We would place them all in these clubs from our record pool contacts, and or get them in front of people, obviously for bottom line, selling some product, and fun time. But someplace else was a place. It was an old castle, and they had this little tiny DJ booth and a couple of Bose speakers up on the second floor. And Chris Tortu, who was a great guy to work with, and Skeets, who actually owned the place, and his brother Dino, they weren't really so sold on the disco idea. They wanted to do bands, but Chris, who was closer to our age, knew that this was where it was going. And this place was opulent with lighted dance floor, different colors, mirrors and stuff like that around the place. And as we tried to do this little booth just wasn't doing it. It just didn't work. And I finally found Chris with the help of Carmen Tero and said, look, if you're going to make this thing a nightclub, let's do it. So we took the stuff from downstairs and we put this booth back against the wall, which was a great challenge. And then convincing Skeets that the lights really work when the place is painted black, much better than this bright daylight kind of setting that they had. Well, over one weekend, we painted this club entirely black. And it really, really turned out well. But we just blacked everything out, which is one of the expressions that I still use today. This place would be great if we just had some more black paint. Because it showed the visual effects, it showed the time, it showed, people were getting high at that point and whatever, and everybody was in a love type of, free love kind of world. So it was the fantasy part of it. We were able to, I think that the best club that I would see would change colors was 12 West. Every year they would come back with a different wall color, and they had these wall washers. And that's where the black paint idea came in. We could do certain colors on the wall, and we could change it by the theme. And that was really good times. Black it out, and we got a lot of mirror balls. And then we started putting a bunch of voice of the theaters in, as opposed to the little Bose speakers, and they were running bass horns onto the stage, using 1100 turntables in a Bozak on a swinging platform, because everything it was an old building, everything shook. You couldn't get away when you turned the volume up. It was just the feedback would go through the tone arm. So we eventually put these chains that went all the way up into the support system of the roof, and just the whole thing swung. So when you were playing records, it would just go, it would move. You kind of got into a groove, you got used to it. But when you first got on there, it was pretty intimidating, because your hands would hit the chains and stuff would shake. But they were growing pains, and truly a fun time. And someplace else went on for a really, really long time, as well as Valentino's. And we eventually brought that in and made a teen dance there, which Valerie Luzzi, now Valerie Knight at WOGL in Philly, and my partner, did the teen dance there. And they were doing 1,000 kids on Sunday afternoon. It was, it was a great time. So it was a big success, and really built from an old club, and certainly has its history. Another club around over there was Her Place, which eventually was Gatsby's, and a couple other names, Taylor's. And that particular club was a straight bar, a gay girls bar, and now they tore the original structure down, and now it's a full-service restaurant, entertainment complex. That was probably within a 2-mile vicinity. That is all that little Cherry Hill area. And then at this same point, which is the early 70s, maybe 1975, we're talking about now, as the music box was going along, Wayne's dream was to build a club to rival anything in New York in Philadelphia. And that's when the plans for the Second Story came together, which was probably the most famous club in Philadelphia. The Second Story, from my memory, took about 2.5 years to build. It was an old church at 12th and Walnut. Barry Geffman, who's Wayne's brother, did a lot of the design. He was very, very good in that area, and very good in the lighting end of it. And Wayne was a disc jockey, also a Billboard reporter, and also one of the ones that won Billboard DJ of the Year, as well as myself and Frank Goodman and Billy Kennedy. All 4 of us worked at the Second Story. And this was truly a phenomenal club. The club originally was, the disc jockey who was supposed to be there was Paul Casella, who I said earlier was probably, to me, I thought, just absolutely one of the greatest disc jockeys, and probably still one of the greatest disc jockeys that ever walked in New York. or worked in New York. Paulie was smooth as silk. I never heard that man have a bad night. Besides, the guy was just a hell of a nice guy. Introduced me to people like Tony Cintorino, Stan the Man, David Todd, Larry Patterson, Larry Levan, Phil Mancini, Billy Hooker. These guys were all in Trenton, and we would meet at David's and RCA office. Frank Goodman, who worked the Brothers 3 over in Jersey. We're still lifelong friends. And all of us were into the music, and really, really was a fabulous, fabulous time. I mean, these guys were great. They were great disc jockeys. They came to work totally prepared. They knew their crowds. They knew what they wanted to play, and they put it together. When I said Wayne had this club built with Paul in mind, came down, the club was getting ready to open, and Paul made a change in his mind that he wanted to stay in New York. And at that point, Second Story, when it was open, I was opening up as a gay bar. Wayne hired Walter Gibbons and Rich Kazar to open the place, along with another disc jockey, Larry Snyder. My good friend Jim Delfemini, who was the light man, was probably one of the greatest visual effects guys. He did stuff with Christmas lights you can't even imagine. Him and Barry did some very, very creative things at the Second Story. Dear friend, and sorry he's gone, as well as so many of our friends are gone. But the Second Story opened up as a gay bar with Walter and with Richie. Wayne played the club as well, and Larry Snyder. But the club wasn't accepted in the gay community in Philadelphia. They thought it was opulent. They thought that at the time, they weren't considered in the planning of that particular club. And the club ran as a gay bar for about 13 months. I was really disappointed because working the bars I worked, Wayne didn't want me to start that club. But 13 months later, when he was in some difficulty and needed to get this club going, I wound up playing back at the club and did an opening night. The first night I did there was 2,200 people with lines around the block. There was a radio station that did an anniversary party, WCAU, which was fascinating rhythm back then. We threw this party, and from there, the place just went off the hook. The good part about that was there was some loyal fans in the gay community, and just, we had our mix of strange people and we had our mix of normal people. So the club kind of had its own feel. The Second Story became the place to go. A lot of celebrities wanted to come. It was a private club, open to 4 o'clock. You had to have a membership to get in. And it was just a great time. And I actually worked that club from the beginning there on that. I remember that Wednesday night until it ended, and we went through 4 different changes of people. And the place closed with a line around the block like the way it opened. Truly remarkable story. Although it had its ups and downs, it's had good points and bad points. It was a great experience, and probably the thing that really launched my career in the nightclub business. Obviously, this is a long career, and many things have happened. But I talk about, as I said, the Second Story was an incredible experience for me. But aside from Wayne being an innovator, one of the things that he did for me, or what happened for me, was introducing me to people like Alex Rosner, who made these sound systems at the Music Box and then again at the Second Story. We had talked with Richard Long and other people to build the sound systems for the club, but it became apparent that Alex had the sound that we wanted. I can remember when I first started on here and listening to people, Slip Q, and one of the great turntables back then was a QRK, which had a really quick start. And when you were using 45s, these were great. You were able to get in there, but it wasn't really mixed. It was kind of beginning to the end. You were overlapping songs, segueing songs as opposed to mixing songs. Well, then you go in here at that point as you're coming up into the 70s, you start hearing a guy like Casella who seamlessly mixed records. And you're wondering how these guys are doing what they're doing. I can remember having turntables, taking the platter off, sanding the glue off of the turntable, taking those rubber mats off, and using baby powder and wax paper to try to slip a record, to try to get that seamless mix going. Of course, you know, it's not like today, and even for the people that are second generation, the first generation jocks, we were inventing stuff because we didn't have it. It wasn't there. My first mixer was a 4-channel mixer that meant 2 knobs for the left turntable, 2 knobs for the right turntable, which made it pretty tricky if you wanted to hold the record because you needed both hands to do it. There was no way to do left and right channel, but you learned and you adapted. Same way with turntables. We didn't have, we were doing jobs and these guys would come in and they were hi-fi men trying to do commercial installations and the gear just wasn't there. You know, they would give you a belt-driven turntable. In the middle of the night, the belt would fall off and you'd be using your finger to try to get, you know, try to keep it. So at least enough time that you can get out of that record to get onto the one where the belt was on, pull the platter up and put the belt back on and keep extra belts with you. That was one of those things. I mean, you know, finding belts for turntables was a challenge. So Alex Rosner, as well as the venues that I played, really made my career because the total 360 sound, the Klipschorns, the tweeter arrays, the 3-way active crossover, Macintosh amplifiers, Bozak mixers, the original SL1200 turntables with Stanton cartridges. I mean, it was mind-blowing, and we really, really kicked it. The sound at the second story, which is another little sidetrack, the sound at the second story, the bass was so much, and this was on the second floor of an old church. This was actually where the congregation would be. The sound killed the plants in a plant store down the street where they had to build, Gifford, who was the construction guy, they had to build a sound wall, which cost Wayne a freaking fortune to hold the sound in. And then we had to do all these types of sound tests and everything to get this sound under control because, you know, at 4 o'clock in the morning, you could hear this thing for 2 blocks away. And this was right in the middle of Center City. They weren't real thrilled about it. Finally got it under control. There's a little sidebar over there that I won't add, but the sound was absolutely outrageous. So that was that kind of set the standard of where I wanted to be, and eventually brought me into doing some sound reinforcement. With my contacts at the record pool, we were very much in advance of a club opening. So when clubs were opening, they were looking for resources. I had a very powerful Rolodex back in the day, dealing with different vendors and stuff like that, or people that we trusted. So a lot of the club owners and all, they would talk, and I eventually went into sound reinforcement and lighting and stuff like that. Very successful with that. It was a good time, and we did a number of clubs. But that is really a whole other area that at some point in my career we'll talk about, as well as the goods and the bads of that. So the second story for me launched more opportunities. I mean, at the Shore, Barry Geffman opened up a company called Disco Design, which opened up a number of clubs, most famously the Sundance in Wildwood. And he used the talent from his clubs. We would rotate Fridays. Frank Goodman was down there, Carmen Otero, Joe Notafrancesco, Michael Blum, Charles Cassano. I mean, how could I forget Charles? Michael Palveri. These guys were just incredible disc jockeys. I mean, the talent was crazed. And then nightclubs, just every corner, they started expanding. And I worked those clubs, Popcorns, Flanagan's and stuff, well through the 80s. And very, very happy that I did. And good time. Um, Need a break to collect my thought.
It's okay. Let it roll.
Okay.
Don't forget about that club you just mentioned before, Chow or something.
Yeah, at the same point, we connected with Joe DeLulo for Club Chow, which was up in the Northeast. It was another private club. It was a European discotheque. And he had Italian designers come in, and he really, it reminded you of Regine's when it was way back when, you know, it was one of those type of clubs. And it was a great experience that stemmed from out of working in Center City. Really successful venue. We recently had a reunion, and that was just a ton of fun. Club Chow had this great ceiling where all the lighting was concealed. The sound was concealed. It was old brick and these great couches, and fun time at Club Chow. That was and some great disc jockeys worked there. Valerie Luzzi, as well as Robbie Tronco, myself, a great light man, Keith Winstrup, Laurie, whose last name slips my mind right now, played the lights there, and another successful after hours club. Let me look at my notes here a second. Back in the day also too, one of my greatest relationships and close friends was Kurt Borshevitz. Kurt's no longer with us. Kurt is most famously known for Hot Shot and his partner Andy Kahn. They had Queen Village recording studios. Kurt was the guy in Philadelphia who was another original Billboard reporter, but Kurt really held the standard at the DCA, at raffles, at Equus and stuff like the clubs like that. And Kurt was another ultra smooth disc jockey who was always a pleasure to listen to, and a really, really nice man. I would be remiss not to tell you about all my great times with Kurt and or the DCA. We were within walking distance, and we were all close friends, close-knit friends, so we could go from the second story to go to the DCA, and we would support each other, or we'd be at South Street, or we'd go over to Jersey. So it was a pretty good community for the most part. Of course, you know, jealousy and other things that come up, money and things like that, changed the business. But for the most part, for my career, I could say I had a good working relationship with most of the disc jockeys in the area. At that point too, then Wayne was Upstairs was going good, but his dream was still to have a good gay club, and it was musically oriented. Well, this music box had closed, and the sound system there. Wayne decided in the basement of the second story would open up a club called Catacombs. A Catacombs was a serious bar, musically oriented. They built this club in the basement there, and if you want to talk about sound, he had 4 voice to the theaters that he brought up, and Luxman amplifiers that were brought up from the music box. Him, Donald Carucci, and Alex Rosner, and or all the other people involved, doubled that sound system, and this was a low ceiling club. When you were on the dance floor in Catacombs, you thought you were inside a headphone. That's how intense it was. There was no place you could go in that club that the sound it was just outrageous. That club hosted some very, very famous disc jockeys. Wayne Geffman, Billy Kennedy, Frank Goodman, David Todd, Donald Stone. I mean, just to name a few, and they tore it up. This club opened up at midnight and sometimes didn't end till 12 o'clock the following day. And this was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday club. Only open 2 nights a week. It was a juice bar, no liquor, but people came in to dance and listen to music. The things that went on there were absolutely incredible. That club, we just had a reunion with that club, and we actually drew 350 to 400 people, and it was a similar vibe. But if you for a serious musical experience, Catacombs in Philadelphia set the bar, and that was a really, really interesting place. For the music heads and the vinyl heads that were out there, that was the place to come and hear music. Nick Martinelli and David Todd, Nick and David did a ton of production together. When you wanted to hear these records on acetate or on tape or stuff like that, as they were doing work in the studio, Catacombs, the Second Story, these were the places you were hearing it. Hot Shot, when Andy, when we were there checking levels to see how this piece of vinyl would sound, we were doing it upstairs. We were 2 blocks away from Sigma Sound. We were a mile away from Alpha International. All the Philly artists were at the club, and when they wanted their records, they wanted them played there. So we would get so many advanced copies and so many things to play. I had recently, with the age of Facebook and things like that, I had a guy say about a Travaris song that it was too commercial. And I had to write him back and saying, yes, it's commercial, it's 30 years or 40 years later, but when we had this record, it was 5 months before it was released. Everybody for 5 months was trying to get this record. Yeah, it was commercial, and yeah, it was the time, but you couldn't get these records. We had stuff on tape, and we had acetates and things like that people would die for. Now today it's easy to say, yeah, it was a commercial record, but at the time, when you were breaking songs, we had them well in advance. As a Billboard reporter, as a record pool operator, as being connected with the studios. Nick Martinelli, Gene Leone, who still operates the studio. Johnny Luongo would come down. Jackie McCloy, I can't tell you enough about Jackie, and I'm sure Jackie will be a part of this segment as well. Huge musical knowledge and great friend, and probably one of the nicest people in the business. We were all, Judy Weinstein, Larry Levan, everybody, ran to the garage, but Larry would come to Philly. He loved Philly. He loved him and Billy Kennedy. They had such a close relationship. Yeah, Larry was down, just stay down 2-3 days at a time, hanging in Philly between Catacombs and the Second Story. He loved it. Sharon White, Sharon would come down. So I am really fortunate to have been around the giants in the business. Again, I need to look at my notes. I guess what I'd like to talk about now, I won the Billboard Disc Jockey Award in 1978. Kurt was the previous winner. I had been the runner-up for a few years, and I won the Disc Jockey of the Year award working at Second Story. Billy Kennedy won that same award, which was a disc jockey alongside me there. Frank Goodman, which was one of the other disc jockeys, won, and Wayne Geffen won that award. So in that particular club, during that period of time, I had 4 Billboard award-winning disc jockeys, which is pretty remarkable, based on the way that award was done. It was done by your peers, and it was done by the record companies. So it wasn't a popularity contest. This was what you were doing, how you were promoting records, how you were presenting product, how you were representing the industry at that point was a clear indication, if you were a winner, what you were doing. And I'm very proud and very happy to have been there. Worked a long time to get to that point. And a great organization. I thank them. I guess that would be that. Really was another item that helped me get through my long career. And I want to jump to after the Second Story. Worked a number of clubs, chains that came in. The music chains. It was kind of the Prelude area. I worked a lot of top 40 clubs at that point, and I continued spinning records until the 2000s. Took a break in the middle there, and now today still playing music. Of course, my niche is the customers from that era who remember the dance classics and or with the touch of top 40. And the reason I'm jumping to that is to talk about technology. I've always been a technology person. I've always liked technology. But I thought at some point I would be a vinyl purist. Love vinyl, love my 1200s, Love my Bozak. Really do. I mean, I tell you, great stuff. If I had my druthers and I had a place that I could do that, I would have that segment. But I got to let you know the technology has moved, I believe, in the right direction. Now, I can get a lot of yays and nays on this one. But the fact is that I think one of the things that still kept me playing and still keeps me playing this day is you move forward. You move forward with the music. Yeah, the music's not the same today. It's a lot electronic based as opposed to us having real musicians. I was very fortunate to be part of all these eras. But today is okay. It's fine. It's good. But you have to be open minded and be able to let this into your life. I find right now that the technology and where we're going and what it is, if you do your homework the same way you did your homework way back when, and you do your presentation right, and you make your files right, and you use certain things, tools to your advantage, you could really get to that point again of really crisp sound and get used to the technology, whether it's a small wheel Pioneer or a mix deck or a virtual machine or these Denon machines, which I find are great. I got to let you know that I don't think that it's bad. I think that it's a good thing, and I think that if you're young out there and you hear about all the historical stuff and you hear about the great turntables and everything like that, when we were kids and we were back in there, we would die for the technology that's available today. We could have did so many different things. We would, to make a tape loop, we'd have to run a reel-to-reel through an auxiliary on the Bozak just to get a reverb. I mean, it would take what's going on today in one little piece of software. We needed a room full of equipment, basically hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that you can push a button for now. Yeah, it's not the old school, but it's really pretty neat that you're able to do it. So, on the one end, yes, historically I love it, but don't think you have to be stuck at certain things. You can have the retro. It's like having an old car and putting a new engine in, but stick with it. It's going to be fun, For you today, I talk to people all the time. People talk about the music today. They say, well, the music's not like it was way back when. But 10 years from now, you'll be looking at this music saying the same thing we said 20 years ago and 30 years ago. Wow, there's nothing like the music that we had now. It's just the way the cycle goes. So, don't get caught. Don't get put onto a pillow, put this sheet over your head. Open it up because it's all music. It's all people having a good time. And absorb it. Have fun with it. And always have fun with it. And at this point, I think that's it until I can do a reversion, maybe revise my thoughts after I see this. And I love you, and thank you, Luis, Pinky, all my friends at L.O.V. Wow. Can't thank you enough.
It's been wonderful listening to you. What an experience. I can relate to you, and I'm sure everybody out there can really appreciate your comments, your history. I'm just blown away by all that information, Frankie. I'm honest. I would like to ask you something very important. How would you like people, fans like myself, because I've been your fan for a long time as well, how would you like us to remember you in the contribution that you have made in this industry? How would you like to be remembered? Your legacy, obviously you live in a beautiful legacy, and Legends of Vinyl is dedicated to bring that legacy, continue that legacy for future generations, and we can all learn from each other. And this is an example of how a professional disc jockey with so much history is able to teach us all more, because we always continue to learn. We learn from each other. To this moment, I still learn from everybody, and I really, really appreciate that. How would you like us to remember you, Frankie?
Well, I'd like you to really remember me for being Frank. I mean, I am what I am. I've had a lot of fun in the business. I'd like to, like I stated earlier in the beginning of this interview, is that really it's about what you do for the business. The business has been great to me, and both financially and mentally, I've really had a great run, and I'm still having a run. I can't even believe it. I'm still having a run. and having a ball doing it. So I guess the would be to love your music. Well, I like to be remembered for loving my music, doing my homework, and being able to advance with the times, and having fun doing it. Great support with my family. I probably wouldn't be here today without my family. They're the best. And for organizations like L.O.V. and or other organizations that are actually bringing this to the forefront. You know, when you were doing this, you never thought you'd tell this tale. And of course, I may have given you the cliff notes, I like to call it, of what my tale is. But it's just wonderful to be able to get and talk about some of the things that happened in my career. So I guess my legacy would be just, remember Frank for being Frank and loving the music and loving the business.
How is the Frank who Sestito came to be?
That story is, my last name is Sestito. At the second story, we used to have this billboard who was playing each particular night. And I had a lot of following in all the clubs. What had happened at the second story was you had to have a membership to get in, and they would go, I was a friend of Frankie's. And what they would ask them at the door is, if you were a friend of Frankie's, you would know Frankie's last name. And there were people that just didn't know my last name. So it was Sandy Santilli and Maureen who said, Frank who? And I hated that. My last name's Sestito, So anyhow, the Frankie who came about from people coming at the door who couldn't pronounce my last name. And it was just one of those things that stuck and still stuck to this day. Funny story. I wasn't thrilled in the beginning, but this many years later, hey, what are you going to do? And thank you to Sandy and Maureen for tagging me like that. I personally like Legends of Vinyl and love Legends of Vinyl because of where it brings me and in history and or the historical people that are involved here. Where I think I can do and what I could possibly help Legends of Vinyl is obviously, like I said before, I have a pretty powerful Rolodex, and anything in the Philadelphia area that I could help with, I think that would be my best contribution, as well as things like this, doing interviews, audio, video, some print, maybe archiving some of my photos and some of the memories that I have in my own personal collection, and let the legacy go on. Legends of Vinyl, it's exactly what it is. I mean, it's the old vinyl guys, and you guys have really kept it together and gave us an opportunity as we get into our older years of our life to tell stories.
Well, we are in great company. I always say that we are in great company. I'm in like a little kid here sitting next to Frankie, and when I get together now, we're getting closer to the WMC, which is the Winter Music Conference, and we all gonna get together. We all gonna be crazy and acting like kids, because we are kids in our hearts. Ray Pinky Velasquez is as the CEO and my partner in Legends of Vinyl. He asked me to tell you how grateful and how excited he is as well that you sitting here and giving us this moment. So I'm relaying the message to you, and from my heart to you. Obviously, I thank you. Really, I thank you so much.
Been fun.
It's been a while since we've been up on the phone and talking about this moment, and I just, he made it happen. And what can I tell you?
And I think in the future, we'll be able to do some more, and that's fun. That's something to look forward to.
And I'm looking forward. Here I'm asking him to adopt me because I'm looking for.
I got enough nephews.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for.
Thanks for having me.
And
I'll fill you in on any details I forgot after I see this interview, and there's probably segments there that I went blank on or stuttered through, but I'll get it right. Thanks, guys.